Devin Dampier went 21 of 25, 206 yards and 2 touchdowns in the Utes' 43-10 win over the UCLA Bruins. Of course, a former Pac-12 foe in the familiar Pasadena Rose Bowl. Of course, Devin Dampier also 87 yards rushing. Wayshawn Parker added 62 on the ground. Akiri Rogers was 61. Smith Snowden was your leading receiver last week with 6 receptions, 51 yards. Of course, he added 15 yards and a score on the ground. That is your nickelback playing a little bit of offense. He was not the only defensive player playing some offense. Lander Barton with a touchdown as well. And I know the guy sitting next to me had a particular feeling seeing Lander Barton, the linebacker, wearing that number and catching a touchdown for Utah. Trevor Reilly, the former Ute Super Bowl champion. What's up, my man?
I am so honored to be here. Always kind of been a dream of mine, doing pre or post game for the U, baby.
The honor's mine. Let's be clear. The honor's mine. The honor is ESPN 700's, and we're really happy to have you here. Of course, breaking down Utah football and looking at the home opener in 2025, Cal Poly in Utah. Now, listen, you kind of know the deal with these FCS opponents. They are getting a big old game check, and they're coming in, and Utah, you want to be clean, you want to execute. You don't have too many expectations outside of that. But, Trevor, we were just talking about a Cal Poly quarterback, a skill position crew. They got some players there. And we'll get into the whole roster deep, but tell me what your quick thoughts were when we were watching some highlights before we came on.
Well, the quarterback is actually a better pro prospect than our quarterback. I know that sounds blasphemous, but he's 6'6", 220. His first start last week, watching his release, he's got a nice delivery.
Right.
They're running a pro-style offense. He's under center at times. He's in the shotgun. His ball was a nice, the intermediate passes where you can tell a good quarterback in college, right? Can they complete those 12 to 18-yard plays with touch, right? You got to throw over a linebacker under a safety sometimes. He can make those throws. At least he could against my old town, University of San Diego. And then they got a receiver, number 10, right? You'll see him all over the field as best they can, especially in the first quarter. Those first 10 or 15 plays, right? In these FCS games, everybody, we usually see maybe some 7-0. You're following the scrolls. Oh, my goodness, Alabama's down 7-0 to Mercer.
Right.
But, everyone scripts for 10 plays, and once they figure you out. So the goal here is we want to get through this first quarter with no blood drawn, obviously. But I'm looking at this from a different perspective, Porter. I'm seeing possible transfer portal guys as I'm watching this game. That's what I'm looking for, okay?
Right.
I'm looking to see how much, that guy's going to cost some money. We should be in the market for that guy. And so it'll be interesting to see the rest of the roster. But those two guys on offense, particularly the quarterback and number 10, stood out for me.
The scope in which we watched this matchup, right? You look at ESPN's analytics. Utah has a 99% chance of winning today at home. Listen, they're going to get out of here with a win. Cal Poly's going to go home and fund their athletic department for the next 6 months or so. And that's how these games work. But we can look at it in a different scope. As Trevor just said, players that, maybe be on the market in the offseason, right? And that's not a detriment to Cal Poly. We're looking at programs that can be feeder programs, if you will, to bigger schools. We're looking at different opportunities for different types and different sizes of schools. And for Utah, I think that's one of the ways you look at some of these games. You also, you get out of here healthy. You execute. You play clean, right? When I say clean, I don't care if the score's 70-10 or 37-0. Doesn't matter to me. If your first team looks good, they execute, they get off the field healthy, those are kind of the goals you want to see. And then, Trevor, what does Zach Wilson what does Zach Wilson look like? Isaac Wilson look like? What does Bert Ficklin look like, right? What does your second unit that, as we've learned over the last couple of years, you may need some productivity from, what do they look like? And that's kind of the scope that you also watch these games through.
Absolutely. Another thing, watch out for the ghost of Fred Whittingham Sr., okay? He was a Cal Poly graduate, all right? So there's some history there.
Paul Wolf there now,
yes.
Some family, real big college football families here.
Absolutely, and even Ted Tollner was involved with this team. Famously, they lost the team in a plane crash in 1960. I think Ted Tollner was one of the only survivors. And anyways, to put this thing into perspective, there's a lot of history here for Coach Witt. As his career winds down, this is a chance to play the alma mater of his father, who he loved dearly.
Right.
Just loved him dearly. The whole program, defense especially, is based off of that. But I'm looking at this again. I'm looking at this team. It reminds me of when I was at Jackson State, coaching there. back when we were moving on to Colorado, before we moved there, our guys were being, as we played these teams, they looked at, can we buy this guy, right? What's he going to be worth? And I'm really looking at to see, again, I'm going to reiterate that. I'm looking to see how we can find guys.
How did you react to that during the season when you're competing with these guys, but you also want these kids to have better opportunities, right? You wanted them to transfer from Jackson to a bigger school.
Absolutely.
How did you deal with that? It's a weird dichotomy in football.
It is, and it's, as you see this quarterback, I can't help but think, how did he slip through the cracks? And part of me thinks that maybe it's part of the plan. Some kids are underdeveloped. Some guys slip through the cracks. But as you're part of a team like that, and let's say you're Cal Poly and you're the coaching staff, everybody's all but accepted it now, right? Mm-hmm. You're a minor league team.
Right.
And so it's open market, and you're not really affiliated with anybody. But as these guys get a chance to get on the national stage, watch out early on in the game here, Utes. We don't want to see the game get, we don't want to be down 14-0, like you said, because of a non-clean, a special teams blunder or a drive, and all of a sudden we're in a dogfight. At halftime, it's a tie score. So I'm looking for the first quarter to see if we can really handle this squad.
And that's Trevor Reilly, the former University of Utah linebacker, edge, defensive end. What do you want?
I was play as they needed me. We were a thin roster. I'd play some days at Mike.
Never
some
tight
days,
end, though. What's up with that?
I had one rep on offense. It was special teams. It was a 2-point play. But now, honestly, I wasn't a good enough athlete. Okay, back to your last point about Lander Barton. I'm looking to see him tackle better in the open field.
Yeah.
Right, watching the tape. He did a good job, right? But I want to see him make those solo tackles and do a better job tackling. The whole team really tackling in the open field.
That's kind of been the thing with Lander. There's been times where, he makes the read. He's there. He's clearly watched the tape. And then open field, him and another athlete, even though he's a great athlete, it just, something goes on out there. And that is one area that if we see Lander Barton doing what his brother's doing on Sundays, it's probably something he needs to look at. We're gonna go through the whole Utes roster and talk about stuff like that. We'll do a little Cal Poly scout as well. Trevor getting into the history books with Cal Poly, with Kyle Whittingham. I want to get into the history books with Kyle a little bit more in this next segment because last week was fun, and it looked really familiar with what Kyle does to that team in Los Angeles. And, of course, he, a Southern California kid himself. Trevor Reilly, Porter Larsen. We're here live at Beer Bar in downtown Salt Lake City. It's 161 South, 2nd East here in downtown Salt Lake. They want to get their new menu out there. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Cotton Bottom Burger in Cottonwood Canyon. Well, they own and co-own that restaurant. So they have the Cotton Bottom Burger here. It's one of the best burgers in the city. They want you to come try it. And, hey, maybe a Bloody Mary and brunch with Trevor and I as we talk some football and get you ready for the home opener. It's Utah and Cal Poly, 4 p.m. Mountain Time kickoff. The Utes 41.5-point favorites as of right now. Of course, Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, Stevenson, Sylvester have the call from Rice Eccles Stadium. That comes your way in just a couple of hours right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. That's head coach Kyle Whittingham bringing us back in on the Utes Game Day pregame show. You're going to hear from him, his weekly press conference. We'll play that back here in about a half an hour, brought to you by our friends at Sound Warehouse. The Utes Game Day pregame show brought to you by our friends at Outlaw Distillery, official spirits provider for our ESPN VIP tailgate at each home game this season. So for you guys who stop by Beer Bar and pick up a few tailgate passes. I see a few Utes fans trickling in already. And I guess Trevor gets one of those as well. A few Utes tailgate passes to come by and try some Outlaw Distillery. Of course, the official spirits provider of ESPN 700's tailgate. And listen, Outlaw Distillery, you can try it at their store. That's the best way to do it. You go in, you get a taste, and they take you on a little tour of their whole operation, from grain to glass. It is Outlaw Distillery, a product forged in the history of the American West and available at all state liquor stores. Oh, and at our friends at Big Willie's. We're at Beer Bar right now, though, downtown. If you wondering where you're going to go for the game, maybe park downtown, take the tracks up if you don't have a parking spot, and Beer Bar's a good spot to stop on the way up there. It is 161 East, 2nd South here in downtown Salt Lake City. I am Porter Larsen. Aside, Trevor Reilly, former Utah linebacker and Super Bowl champion with that big ring. Can I see that thing?
Well, this is my Jackson State ring. It's the only one I care about now.
That's the ring you're carrying? I thought you had the other one on.
Well, I used to have it. I think Dave Fogren has it. I gave it to his son a couple weeks ago. I got to call him.
I love how laissez-faire you are about
it's for the kids, man.
The Jackson State ring is super cool. And I wanted to talk about this a little bit more, because right now you're, of course, doing some work with the Utah Islanders.
Yeah.
Let's give folks who maybe aren't in on, they're listening to the Utes pregame show, probably know all about Big 12, probably know all about big-time college football. What are the Utah Islanders doing? Where do they fit in this space?
It's a great question. We were talking off air. I'm watching this Penn State FIU game, and I can't help but thinking, what really is the difference between an FIU, Utah State, and Cal Poly? Nothing, right? They can't pay much, if anything, and they're considered bumps in the road now because of all the money changing going on. So I think the Islanders fit in somewhere below those guys, where we want to feed guys into programs like Utah and BYU initially. But then there's obviously a place for our guys to go, but there has to be a bottom somewhere.
Right.
So we're at the bottom of the pro level, or the minor league level, I call it.
Well, and a lot of times, right, if you're a feeder program, think of a JUCO program. For Utah, that always just meant Snow College. That always just meant Ephraim, right? You go out and got a job farming, cleaning turkey, cleaning, at the turkey farm, and maybe getting a scholarship, or maybe at some point transferring to Utah State or to the U, and keeping your football dreams alive. I met and know hundreds of kids who did that.
Yep.
Some of them that Jalen Warren, who is now playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the first running back the Pittsburgh Steelers have signed to a second contract in 30 years.
How about Starlo
Tulele,
Kenny Palapoy, man. I mean, you could go through a crew of them, and Rick's College used to have a squad, and BYU fed off of them.
But now, with the business that college football is, that might be needed in a market that isn't, no disrespect to Ephraim, but a market that has corporate sponsorships, a market that has connections, a market that has a Division I college football team that maybe they can use as a partner or a feeder for.
Absolutely, and to think of it this way, there's so many kids that are good at football, right? And you said it, there's limited amount of spots. So you got teams like Ogden Jets, you got teams in St. George Eagles, we're affiliated with Salt Lake Community Colleges, and that helps us here because we're in Salt Lake. Who the heck wouldn't want to live in Salt Lake or Provo? And so it just becomes another team and another. When we got 60 kids in college, dude. I mean, that's a great thing. I feel really good about that, actually. And we're playing well. We won against last week against Laverne College, D3. And so, not to get too far off into the weeds in this, but again, as I watch this Cal Poly game, I can't help but think, man, I'm scouting, right? I'm looking at who maybe is going to bounce back to us, or maybe is going to bounce up to the U, and what they're going to cost. And it's fun. This is what it is in Europe, right? If any of you guys follow soccer in Europe, this is what it is, dude. You go watch the 18U team, the 20U team, and you see, and every once in a while they scrimmage against the big teams. But this is what you do: is you scout, and so the whole thing it's more fun. And
it is more of a European style, and to be frank, they've been working on that for a lot longer than we have. Obviously, with football and soccer going back
only a couple hundred years, dude.
Hundreds of years back
Yeah.
there, right? So we'll I'm sure find good parts of that and bad parts of that, and try to navigate it as we can. But the college football world is a lot different than it was when old Fred Whittingham was at Cal Poly.
Yeah.
Kyle Whittingham was growing up in Southern California in the shadows of the Rose Bowl. Well, fast forward, 30, 40 years, Kyle Whittingham is now 10-5 against the UCLA Bruins. Trevor, Utah as a program is 12-10 against the UCLA, or 10-12 against the UCLA Bruins. All 10 of those wins for the Utes against UCLA come in the Kyle Whittingham era.
Well,
What does that say about Kyle, number one, but also how cool is it to see a Southern California kid with that much history connected to him have that much success against UCLA, of all teams?
Put things into perspective. I think the first time Utah played UCLA when Kyle was the coach was 2007.
Yep.
And they lost in L.A. My brother was on that team, A.J. Reilly. Just a quick note, only guy to walk on in football and basketball, probably Utah. That's a weird story. But anyways, I see the whole thing with Kyle as a complete scale, right? Those were good teams back then with Mountain West. It kind of fits into our whole narrative today. Even though they won 10 games that year, good squad. I think they won 9 in a row that year, and they had a good team. They finished in the top 25, and UCLA, they beat them pretty easily, I think. And then you scale to last week, where they play a team that signed a guy that's probably the best free agent on the market last year. Would you say that, the quarterback?
I mean, the only quarterback that was in the transfer market that played in the playoffs last year.
So there's that, and they killed them. And I said it earlier in the week, we own L.A., all right? SC, too, we've been whooping on them the last couple of years, the times we played them. They don't want to see us anymore. They ran, all right? That's why they went to the Big Ten. No, I'm just kidding. But the point is that Kyle's done a heck of a job. Just talk about UCLA from 2007 to now scaling the roster. And I can't help but give credit. When they first started the recruiting process, it was Dennis Erickson.
Mm-hmm.
They brought Dennis in. He brought in Pablo Cano and Fred Whittingham, and they started building this thing in 2011 as far as from a personnel side. Fast forward now, Robert Bleckham. We got to give them credit, man. Same coaching staff in a lot of ways, same type of defense they were running. And now we're killing them in L.A., and it just goes to show with Coach Witt, dude, he always says that the cream rises to the top and hard work pays off. He's an epitome of that.
And he's done it right, of course, with a bunch of local kids. Smith Snowden, we saw a bunch of them on display last week, but a bunch of kids from that Southern California area as well, which, is, as you know, has been a huge staple for the Utes in their Pac-12 era. I wonder, how it changes now that you're not playing there every week, right? That's something we're going to have to figure out, and I think Morgan Scalley will probably lean into the Houston market that he is really built out. What do you see that recruiting footprint being like, and how do you see it changing now that Utah's not in the Pac-12?
Well, it doesn't matter anymore because there's money involved, right? And we got a good market. We got an international airport. I've been saying this for the last 3 years. The SEC is going to struggle when money gets even. Who the heck wants to live in Tuscaloosa? I just moved from Mississippi. It's great down there.
You're seeing the Big Ten maybe.
It's separating, man.
Money-wise at least.
And at least you're not getting the free agents or the high school kids out of the West and out of the North like they used to. They used to get them down South.
Right.
Remember Jim Harbaugh brought that mobile camp down there and they banned him? Remember that whole thing when he was at Michigan? Well, things have changed now, okay? It just who the heck wants to live down South? No offense. I love the South, right? I have roots down there. But you can't get a flight west to Dallas. Right? So that's a tough deal to recruit kids. Now your recruiting area, it shrinks. Salt Lake flies direct pretty much everywhere. And so we got a huge advantage no matter what happens next year, what conference we're in. We're international, baby, and we got a hub airport. We're rolling.
There we go. I wanted to get your feel on that with Kyle, his LA roots, and what is really a domination. Some of the things that Utah's done to UCLA over the last decade are it should be illegal, right?
Oh, yeah.
43-10. You go to some of the Joe Williams in the Rose Bowl. It's just been a really impressive display, and now
I remember they came out in 2011, right? It started snowing. These guys were the game was over in the first quarter, dude.
I think you said on Spence's show this week the quote, institutionally soft.
That's what they are, dude. Okay, they used to have this thing where they would quit practice or something, like they had a ditch day or something at the end of the season. Who's heard of such a thing in college, man? What is this?
Utah gets the 43-10 win over the UCLA Bruins, and now look ahead to the home opener today. It's Cal Poly, and thanks to that 43-10 win over UCLA, well, Utah's the number 25 team in the country. We'll get Trevor's thoughts on that on the other side, and we'll talk a little Cal Poly, what we learned in week 1 and what we still have question marks about. That's going to be a little topic in the next segment as well. Here on the Utes Game Day pregame show, I am Porter Larsen, Trevor Reilly, the former Ute and NFL linebacker to my right here at Beer Bar. Come say hello at Beer Bar. Maybe grab some brunch, grab a Bloody Mary. I got some tailgate passes left for you. Maybe a chance to win some tickets to today's game as well. All that, and of course their awesome menu of burgers, brats, and beer. 30-plus beers on tap, all of them local here at Beer Bar. Porter Larsen, Trevor Reilly back on the other side with more Utes Game Day. Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, Stevenson, Sylvester take over at about 2 right here on your home of the Utes for 70 years and counting. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Hey, QB1, Devin Dampier bringing us in on the Utes Game Day pregame show. You can hear Dishing with Devin every week on the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, Thursdays around noon. I know Sean has enjoyed that, and if you guys want to, you can head over to the YouTube page or the website to get the playback from Devin Dampier each and every week on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. It is your home of the Utes. I am Porter Larsen with your Utes Game Day pregame show alongside this week one Trevor Reilly. All right, Trev, I asked you going out of the break questions we had going into week 1 that we had answers to in week 1, right? One of those was Devin Dampier and Jason Beck, what they looked like as a unit in a Utah uniform. We know what they've looked like. They've been together before. We watched their tape, but week 1 it looked pretty good.
It was, I would say, went as planned. Okay, you couldn't script much better. We got off the field quickly. We had some good drives. Everything was smooth, man. I'd like to see the tight ends a little more involved this week. I think they will. But what nothing to complain about.
Right.
How that offense is supposed to be run, it was run. Right. The QB didn't take too many big hits. They got rid of the football. So I'm happy. I am a little more concerned, and I'll say this again. I'm always concerned with the receiver depth. Always have been.
That was one of our questions going in.
And so we had 3 guys playing both ways, all 3 at receiver catching positions. I'm interested to see how those guys respond. They should have. I'm betting on a big game this week from 18.
I think that the tight end position, the versatility there is going to help, right? There's guys that you might not call a wide receiver, but they're not going to play tight end this year. They're going to be split outside. They're going to be kind of the Brant Keithy, Dalton Kincaid role in a lot of ways. That is one thing we learned. But like you, when you get into Big 12 play, and if you want to play even further than that, Trevor, your wide receivers are going to have to, even if they're not catching a bunch of passes, they're going to have to give enough of a threat for those corners to be out on an island or get safety help, right, to change how those defenses play. And we haven't seen that yet. But, man, you've talked about it. You've seen them up close. Tobias Merriweather, Tobias Harris is NBA
Yeah, he's
player.
a hooper, ain't he?
Tobias Merriweather, Larry Simmons, those are guys that have the physical traits that you want in those outside wide receivers. Creed Whittemore, Luca Caldarella, who's been here for a long time. I think that Utah feels they have the bodies there. It's just how to get them involved and do so with a quarterback in Devin Dampier who I think his strengths aren't really getting the ball to deep threat wide receivers down the field. It's going to have to do that at some point during this year, though.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is you want to get too high defense. You want to be so good at throwing the ball that they have to play too high a shell again on first and second down so you can run that football.
Right.
Got them big linemen, right? So we want to get to that. But if you're not threatening on the edges, to your point, why play too high? So that's a lot of football jargon, but the point being is you want to basically the pass sets up the run on this offense.
Utah faced a loaded box almost all last week.
Yeah.
It didn't affect them really, but they didn't spread UCLA out because UCLA didn't feel like they had to.
No, they overpowered them, right? They overpowered them, and sometimes that happens. But at the same time, they also out-athleted them. Smith-Snowden highlight, he made 3 guys miss and scores, okay? The Dampier is out there being Houdini on sometimes. And that's part of the offense, by the way. That's not like those aren't aberrations. You want to get athletes in space, right? And you're going to say, my athletes are better than your athletes. Conversely, if you're playing single high against that defense, you're telling them our athletes are better than yours, and they got showed up. They're not. And so as we play Cal Poly, it's probably going to be, you don't want to get blown out, right? I've been in one of these games before. I was in one 2 weeks ago against Snow. Okay, we hung in there for a couple quarters, and then the talent takes over, right? And so the point being here is we need to be more explosive on the edges throwing the football. And that's not a revelation of any kind.
No.
Just that we have to be aware of that as fans, right? I'm looking for that. As the game goes on, are we making those plays down the field?
And you may not need to see it today versus Cal Poly, but boy, you'd like to, right? Just to get this team in a rhythm, get this team seeing those types of plays, right? Now, hey, if you can nickel and dime it all the way to a Big 12 title game, do it.
Sure, absolutely.
But at some point, there's going to be a time where
matchup, baby.
One defense requires you to take the top off, right?
Dude.
And if all it takes is a couple times during the year for a team to stop you from doing that, we've seen the results of that, of course, in Pac-12 title games and the like, where Utah gets turned one-dimensional, and then they can't score, right? We saw it in the Washington game in a Pac-12 championship. Obviously, that's not going to be the case against Cal Poly today. But I do look at it in the scope of how much can Utah beat you offensively, but how much can they change up what they do in order to beat you in different ways?
Absolutely.
The versatility of that offense is going to be paramount.
Well, that's why I think the tight ends are going to come into play. I think it's the deepest room on the team, right? The whole team. I think the tight end room is by far the deepest. And so I want to see them put on display. I think this is a good week to do it. Because that's a matchup issue, right? You mentioned it earlier. They're gonna spread them out as tight ends. They bring them in and run the football, and then all of a sudden you don't change your So there's a lot of stuff there with those tight ends that can really open things up, right? On the edges is if you can consume the middle of the field with those tight ends. And the diversity of that offense is that they ran. I think they ran for a couple thousand yards last year at New Mexico, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So this is a passing offense. Don't get it twisted. But we want to run the football, man. And to segue, I thought number 1 was dominant last week. I thought he was making guys miss. And I always judge it back if you can make the first guy miss. My gold standard in college football running backs is Zach Moss. I coached him in 2018 and 19. And also Ty Jordan, right? God bless him. Rest in peace.
Right.
Those are my first 3 backs I coached in college. And so that's really, if you ain't that, right, you're just okay to me. And what I mean by that is you got to make the first guy miss every time. Dang near every time.
Zach was, and it's the reason he's and now he's obviously a free agent right now dealing with his injury stuff, but it was the reason he's still an NFL running back is because he's the total package, right?
Yes.
When he got to Utah, he was still working on his vision. Everyone's learning the position a little bit. There was a time against Cal that I always talk about with Zach where he was operating quicker than his offensive line, and it kind of came back to bite them in that final goal line play. And then you fast forward, and Zach has the vision. He has the patience behind his line. He has the ability to make the first man miss and then make the second and third man and fourth man kind of drag him down as he gets 3 or 4 extra yards, right? That's the total package. And as you mentioned, it looked like Wayshawn Parker had a really good start, 5.6 yards per carry. He got into the end zone, then he put the ball on the deck.
Yeah.
In a Kyle Whittingham offense, that usually means, hey, you may be back next week, but you're going to sit down with me for at least a series or two.
In the words of Dion, get him out. Get him out. He used to say it on the headset. Get him out. Why is he – get him out.
Nikari Rogers takes advantage of that, and he goes in for 61 yards. He gets into the end zone as well. Devin Dampier was the leading rusher.
Of course.
You add
He's Houdini, dude.
You add Smith Snowden in there, taking the ball, taking some handoffs out of the backfield. It seems like this is a unit that you're going to see rush by committee. But, as you mentioned, Wayshawn Parker did show some flashes of maybe being that, I think, lead back, at least more of a 3-down back. Not a 4-down back, but a guy that is going to be in there probably getting 16, 20, maybe more carries when asked for.
Those guys can carry teams. Right? We see it in the NFL every week. They get a back who gets rolling. The game, it's hard to stop, man. Think Derrick Henry. I know that's the opposite
Clock
side.
starts rolling.
It's demoralizing, man. I remember this running back SC had, 2013, 12, you can look at the guy up, man. Big guy, right? And he would, in the fourth quarter, he wore us down, right? And then those tackles that are at 2 yards, now they're 4 or 5 yard carries. And you have guys that can just carry the load, right? And Dampier, he's tough. He took I saw him take a shot on the sideline last week, right in the face, dude, and got right up. I don't want to see him take too many shots. I see him as a leading rusher. That worries me a little bit. We've seen what's happened to this team, the Ute program, as the season's gone on with quarterback depth. It's been a horror show at times. So we want to limit that. I don't want to see that anymore, actually. I'd rather not see the quarterback lead the team in rushing. I think everyone watching and listening would agree on that. That's not necessarily a goal that we want to have.
Right.
But with that being said, he's perfectly capable. He's terrific. He's a competitor. Dampier is a gamer. I believe in that. I know people that say it doesn't. I believe that exists. Okay, he can turn it on, and that guy is not going to lose. I love his mentality so far.
We'll talk a little bit more about the Utah defense in segments ahead. But that offense, man, those are the kind of questions we had. Wide receiver depth, what it looks like as far as Devin Dampier in the backfield goes. There were no questions about the offensive line going into the year. The only questions were if they were going to be as advertised.
Yeah.
Week 1, they were.
That
was a unit that they were dominant against UCLA.
Dude, you can take Jim Harding to the bank, dude. As my grandpa used to say about my mother, you can take whatever if she says she's going to do something, take it to the bank. Jim Harding's going to have those guys. I worked for Jim my first year. I was a GA for him.
Uh-huh.
That guy is a diligent, honorable man, and he brings in good talent, and the kids listen to him. You can always count on Jim, right? They've done a great job over the years, and this is kind of the pinnacle. We talked about Robert Bleck and his staff, and Sam Morset. He kind of has been helping Jim on the offensive side there. I would say that that whole crew is not only supposed to be dominant. I told you before, they're the biggest offensive line I've ever seen.
I sent out a tweet about that during the game last week. I'll see if I can pull it up. But it just looking at Utah's size, right? Their offensive line, across the entire offensive line, they're 6'5", 6'6", 300 pounds plus. And then the next guys you bring on, if you want to go jumbo, they're 340, 345.
Dude, their center is the biggest guy on the O-line, right? That's not something you usually hear. He's huge. Kump, he's massive. We've always talked about the tackles. And then you got Moko Fisi, right? He's only a legend. He's a legacy guy, but he played as a true freshman, if I'm not mistaken, right out of high school, Woods Cross.
He's played in like 30 games already.
So the guy, then at the other guard, who's the other guard? I can't remember his name, but he's supposed to be some big-time player. They got some guys that can really go. And, again, they got a leader there. Jim, they pay him a lot of money. And I'm putting his business out there, but he works for the government. They pay him a lot of money, and he follows through. Okay, that guy is worth every penny.
Well, and he's had NFL teams try to poach him numerous times. I can tell you that for certain.
Yeah.
That's been a situation in off seasons before. Now, I think, hey, there's an ability to pay guys that there wasn't, 5, 10, 20 years ago. That has allowed Utah to keep him around, and part of the Pac-12 and Big 12 jump is involved there. Caleb Lomu, 6'6", 304. Fano, 6'6", 305. Mokafisi, 6'4", 315. Jaron Kump, 6'6", 315. Moei, 6'4", 345. And then you got the guys that if you want to throw in the jumbo package, there's an Asiata who's 6'5", 335.
Unbelievable.
Taaga, 6'8", 315. Zero Williams, 6'8", 310. Togiai, 6'6", 307. I mean, this is an offensive line that goes 8, 9, 10 deep with guys that are all
those guys are probably
NFL
going to
size.
get a camp invite, dude.
Right.
That's the thing, is they're all going to probably at least be in camp. And you think about who they're going against this week, Cal Poly. If you're that defensive line coach, I mean, the only thing I can think of how you would go against an offensive line like this, do you guys remember when Mataafa won Defensive Player of the Year at Washington State?
Yeah.
About 260-pound D tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And they ran this 3 down front where they twisted everybody, moved everybody
he was just
around.
quicker. He was just quicker than everybody.
And they were making chaos up there, right? That's the only thing to watch out for, Ute Nation, as we go on this season. We don't want to get out-athleted up front, right? But, again, I'm very happy with these kids. I got Caleb Lomo here. He played for my brother at Highland High School. I made that call, dude. I said, you need to look at this kid. And the rest is history. Those guys are going to be first-round draft picks most likely, so I'm pretty proud of that, actually.
And as you mentioned, maybe some other guys that get camp invites or draft picks themselves. The last time Utah, and this is impressive in and of itself, Jim Harding was the coach. They had at one point, 2016, 2017, all 5 of those guys got camp invites. They all played or were drafted into the NFL.
Asiata, Dielman, all those guys, man. It was a crew right there.
Really, really impressive stuff. And, of course, when you have an offensive line like that, you see stuff like Joe Williams going for 300-plus yards. You see stuff like –
against UCLA,
yeah.
Okay?
You see stuff like you saw last week, a dominating offensive line performance, UCLA and Utah. Now the Utes are the number 25 team in the country, and they have their home opener tonight against Cal Poly. 1-0 Mustangs and Paul Wolf come into Rice Eccles Stadium, where the Utes have won 16 straight home openers, unless you count the COVID year.
Is this Paul Wolf from Washington State, 2011?
Yes, it is.
Heck of a game. John White in the snow, tiptoeing at halftime, came in. There was a foot of snow on the ground, dude. It was unbelievable.
Yep, that is the same Paul Wolf, and now at Cal Poly and going up against Kyle Whittingham. There's a lot of history, maybe not between these two teams because this is actually the first time they've ever met on a football field, but a lot of history in the locker rooms and kind of behind the scenes between Cal Poly and the University of Utah. More on the other side. We're going to get into Utah's defense with this guy, Trevor Reilly, the former Ute and NFL linebacker. I am Porter Larsen. Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, Stevenson Sylvester take over in just over an hour. They'll be up at the Smith's tailgate tent, and then Rice Eccles Stadium for the site of Cal Poly and Utah at 4 o'clock right here on your home of the Utes. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back in the Utes Game Day pregame show, live from Beer Bar today. Beer Bar downtown, of course, 30-plus beers on tap. They've got brats, burgers, sandwiches, fries, salads, snacks, and sides, all of the above. I'm gonna give me some and let you guys know how it is during the Kyle Whittingham press conference. We'll come your way after this segment here. Talk a little bit about the Utah defense, though, Trevor Reilly, and I want to also ask you about the Ring of Honor inductees going into Rice Eccles Stadium lore later today. But we answered and got some questions on the Utah offense in the last segment. That Utah defense, I think you came into the year, like most years, Trev, kind of giving Kyle and Morgan the benefit of the doubt that defense is going to be up to par. It looks that way. I think last year, Trev, this defense would have been seen as a much better unit if it weren't for the struggles of the offense, right? I think Kyle and Morgan have kind of agreed with that. Week 1 against UCLA, 43-10 the final, and the defense looked really good, man. And they did so while 3 of their players were playing two ways on the offensive side of the ball. Your thoughts on their performance week 1? What questions you still have about this defense?
The defense was good, all right? We got to tackle better, right? That's going to be preached all week. I've been saying that all week, and so has the staff, I bet. Watching the tape, 95 had a decent game at times, Aliki.
Yeah.
And sorry, guys, I use the number system. I just –
Aliki Vimahi?
Vimahi, I'm a numbers guy.
I'll get you the names.
No, that's okay. I appreciate you tag teaming that with me. I'm interested in seeing these backup defensive tackles. Okay, Kafusi's son, I think, and the 91, Laie. Doug Kafusi's son, though, and this other kid, they're freshmen, and they looked explosive. All right, they got in their time. They're going to probably be playing a lot of snaps this week. Yep. I'm looking for those 2 guys. Mark what I said here. Those 2 guys are going to have a big game this week.
And as you mentioned, the depth at defensive tackle. You lose guys to the draft. You lose guys to the NFL and Junior Tafuna. You lose a transfer in Keanu Tanavasa. You still have bodies in the room in Dallas Fakalahi and Aliki Vimahi that you trust, that have played a lot of snaps. But you mentioned the depth there because
I like the young guys.
Well, they're good. There's some legacy guys there as well. But this is also a defense that you don't just have one nose tackle and a guy that comes in and gives him a breather every once in a while. Kyle likes to rotate the defensive tackles maybe more than anyone in college football. Can you give some insight into that?
Yeah, well,
how that works up front?
When we were playing, just to go back in time a touch, if everybody can remember Rich Rodriguez, all right?
Of course.
And it was 100 plays a game. So I hear about Travis Hunter playing 110. I said, I've done that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, been there, done that, all right? Never played offense. But the point was there was a phase of football because then Robert and I brought it to BYU. And so we were seeing that quite a bit. And you can probably take it back before that, but I know it for a fact. But that's when I came in. That was the reason for that is you can't have big guys playing 100 snaps, okay? You really shouldn't be having them playing 50. Darren Donald is in the best shape of defensive line we've ever seen. He didn't usually play more than 60 snaps a game. And this is talking about playoffs or Super Bowl.
Effectiveness.
It's effectiveness. It's health. All right, when you got a big semi-truck, right, you need to service that bad boy, right? And those guys need a little more servicing than others.
And they need some time in the garage, too.
That's exactly right. And so if you move out to the ends, right, the Edge had a great game. They were the MVPs of the night, right? Fano and what's the guy's name? John Henry? Great name.
John Henry Daly.
John Henry Daly, dude.
John
Daly, okay, still alive.
He's got 2 great names.
The fact that John Daly's still alive, by the way, that makes him a legend, the life he's lived. But John Henry obviously had a great game, 2 sacks. Both guys are going to be in NFL next year or whatever. They have more years whenever they decide to go. So I'm looking for a little more. We can talk about those guys ad nauseum, but everybody knows that. Look at the stat sheet. Those interior guys, we got to see a little more production out of, right? And I think we will.
Yeah, I think it's the depth there. The linebackers, you mentioned Lander. Lander has been so good at times, and he's had up and downs in his career, just basically really just with injury. But we also mentioned the open field tackling, right? That's probably the one area he's got to dial in a little bit. You see him sometimes make a perfect read and then just overrun, right? That happens a lot with young guys, but
Lander's still new to the game.
Yeah.
I mean, Lander was not a traditional linebacker in a sense coming out of high school. And I always go back to his brother Cody, who I coached. He didn't peak till his senior year. Yeah. And I feel like for me, myself, physically I peaked in 2011, my sophomore year.
I was going to say, Cody the player that Cody was his freshman year to the player he was as his senior year, I was here for all 4 years. That the transformation that he made may have been like one of the biggest progressions I've ever seen from a player, from year 1 to year 4.
Absolutely.
And it was all just so consistent and solid. It wasn't like he just had a flash in the pan. It was a slow and steady build. I think Lander maybe had a little bit more of a foundation as far as an athlete, little bigger body starting with, but he's still going to have those learning curves, right?
Okay, of all the Bartons, Lander's the guy you probably don't want to meet in the street.
Yeah.
Okay, just to be honest with you, right? And those other guys are tough now. I coached them both, but I'm looking at Lander's physical abilities, and I'm seeing the way he's got that leverage and length, and he's a little bit nutty too. Okay, and
he is a little nutty.
And Cody, Cody and Jackson, and obviously Paul, even Mickey, the whole family. We've talked about him, but Lander has got to be a better tackler. They all do, right? And everyone does. Everyone needs to tackle better. It's not a revelation again. What are they doing this week to fix that? Right, we're going to see that on Saturday. What if it shows up? But one thing I can tell you is that Morgan Scalley, it's one of the number one things he talks about, tackling.
Yep. Right,
and he's one of the great coaches of tackling in the whole country. He's really, really good. Really, really good, man.
You and I saw a stat, and I wish I pulled it up because it was super cool. It had some of the top tacklers in the NFL right now. Cody Barton's on there, Fred Warner's on there, Bobby Wagner's on there, just a bunch of guys that were local. Maybe not just Utah, but it seems like if you want to just be a good defensive fundamental tackler, come play college football in Utah.
Who do you think taught Kalani? Kalani was a fullback at Southern Utah, okay? And I played for Kalani, and we learned tackling. Kalani learned from Coach Anderson, and he learned from his own self, but Morgan got to sit there and kind of absorb all that, right? Mm-hmm. So Kyle Whittingham and Fred Whittingham, obviously, it starts there and goes down. But this whole tree has been quite tremendous when you consider the success. Bobby Wagner's going to be a first-ballot Hall of Famer. Played against him in 2009.
No doubt about that.
And he's measurables. He's about 5'11", okay, maybe. And Cody has great measurables, but Lander has the best. That was the point I wanted to make. And so as you look at the whole Utes linebacking crew, the other linebacker there, you got DeMooney and you got the number 7. Okay, Steven's laid off the spot. I can tell you that right now. He's new to the position. He's a DB. You watch the tape, he hesitates.
Yep. And
so he's going to get better, right? As those snaps come, Coach Swan and Morgan, they're betting on youth and talent, right? Seven and Barton are getting most of the time. But John O'Hall, thank you. I can tell you those guys are going to improve, and I wouldn't be surprised if the biggest improvement of the season percentage-wise will be from last week to this week.
You mentioned that coaching tree. We're talking tackling, of course. I want to segue a little bit before we get into the 1 o'clock hour because you mentioned that coaching tree. Ron McBride.
Oh, yeah.
Headed into the Ring of Honor. Utah lore now. His name will be up there on the stadium forever. Utah head coach from 1990 to 2002. Of course, the OC for 5 years before that, and the O-line coach for his start at the University of Utah. You never played for Coach Mack, but as I know, as everyone knows, he's at every game. He's at practices. He's a Ute through and through. And I don't know if there's anyone more deserving, as far as just who they are. Maybe not wins, losses, or stats, but to have their name up on that stadium, I think Ron McBride might be the guy, no?
100%. We call him the Godfather of Utah football, and really you can consider him, or him and Majerus, they're the guy, and Chris Hill, those three are the godfathers of all Utah athletics.
I would agree with that.
Not that they didn't have a nice run in the 40s in the NIT, okay, and some other things.
Won a national title.
44 during the war, a little asterisk there if I'm not mistaken.
Shout out Wat Masaka.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, in the modern ball era, right, the TV era, and it's those three guys. Chris Hill, who hired both those people or was involved in that thing, and Rick Majerus, rest in peace, and then you got Ron McBride. And so Ron, I've been hanging out with Coach McBride. I'm not going to call him Ron, Coach McBride, a lot in the last probably 3 months. Right, we've been organizing with his foundation, and we've been doing some Utah Players Association things. By the way, we have a tailgate today. Come check us out. And so I've got to know him a lot better. He's from Southern California.
Right.
Okay. He's from Southgate, right? The guy brought the swag to Salt Lake City. And right, he brought in the recruiting of 1/3 black, 1/3 Polynesian, 1/3 white. And that's what's made Utah special. That's why these coaches never leave. It's harmony, man. It's peace on earth in football terms. Or they used to call Penn State Happy Valley. Well, we all know that wasn't Happy Valley. We think we're the real Happy Valley, right? Not to throw shade at Penn State, but they had something going there too. The coaches didn't leave, right? So we have a thing here at Utah that's super special, and it all points to Coach McBride.
Roy Jefferson, the other inductee into the Utah Ring of Honor, of course, another Southern California guy, Compton, California kid. Jefferson was inducted into the Utah Athletics Hall of Fame in 1986, and of course, for his career, 16.66 yards per catch, a school record at the time, and remains pretty close to the top of Utah leaderboard 60 years later. The team's leading receiver in both 62 and 63, and of course, one of those in the 1964 Liberty Bowl in University of Utah history. Roy Jefferson was a first-team All-American. That's
dog. The first word comes to my mind, dog. Just a straight dog, man. And that's a guy that, I mean, who else?
Don't mention the All-Pro NFL career.
I mean, geez, man. The guy has a resume that's second to none. The next guy, I don't know, is Manny Fernandez in there yet?
Not yet.
So he'll be probably one of them guys that gets in there. He was on the 72 Dolphins team. But I'm thinking of old school guys. Who's next, right? Coach Witt's obviously up and then Urban Meyer.
He'll be up there for sure. It'll be once he's gone and retired.
Sure.
But they'll make sure his name's up there.
So you think they let Urban in or what?
That's a good question because Urban, let's be clear, his influence on Utah is massive. But to me, it seems like a Ring of Honor thing is more about your relationship with the university. And while Urban's influence on the university is as important as many coaches, is he an Ohio State guy? Is he a Florida guy? Is he a bully? Like he doesn't. He obviously speaks well of Kyle, speaks well of the U. But I don't know. I don't know if he was here long enough.
He went undefeated, dude.
I know.
He won a freaking
it's hard,
BCS bowl, man.
It's hard to say
and
no.
And they blew him out.
Is he a Utah Athletics Hall of Famer? Yes. Ring of Honor guy? I don't know. I'm not sure.
I put
it's
it to you this way.
It's an interesting question.
If I was going to go new school the next time, I'd say Eric Weddle definitely should be up next. I mean, gosh dang.
100%.
He should have been in first. But, just neither here or there. Eric Weddle and Urban Meyer, and then when Coach Witt, gets out whenever he does his business. And, the next guy up for me, player-wise, you start thinking about that, right? Is there anybody else? Well, Steve Smith. Okay? So we got some juice here at Utah, and it all starts, in my opinion, in the modern ball era with Coach McBride and obviously Jefferson. He's just a straight dog, man. Just one of the great players of all time in the history of the game, not just in Utah. And if you're an all-pro, you're one of the great pregame in the history of the game, man.
He was a first-round draft pick and, of course, went on to have a really good NFL career. Both Roy and Ron McBride will be on the pregame show with Bill. They'll be up there live at the Smiths tailgate. So tune in for interviews with both Ron McBride and Roy Jefferson in the next couple of hours leading up to kickoff. That'll do it for this segment. And in the next hour of the show, Kyle Whittingham, a college football scoreboard update, our predictions to the game, and more. This is the Utes Game Day pregame show, live from Beer Bar today, downtown Salt Lake City. Stop by for some brats, some burgers, some sandwiches. It looks like some Oregon alumni are stopping in for their watch party. Trevor's booing them. The former Ute, Trevor Reilly, is not happy with that. But hey, we're welcoming all Big 12, Big 10, SEC, whoever you are. If a football fan, stop by the Beer Bar brunch and pregame show before Utah and Cal Poly. Hey, take the tracks up as well. Park downtown where there's some parking, and then you won't have to deal with the headache on campus at the University of Utah. It is Beer Bar downtown at 161 East, 2nd South. I am Porter Larsen. Trevor Reilly back with me for the next hour of the Utes Game Day pregame show. But next, it's the Kyle Whittingham press conference. If you didn't hear from him earlier in the week, you'll hear what Witt thinks of the win against UCLA, the number 25 national ranking, and, of course, some history with him and Cal Poly. All that right here on University of Utah's pregame show. It is ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Lander Barton, Utes starting linebacker, bringing us back in on the Utes Game Day pregame show. You'll see him in action up on campus at Rice Eccles Stadium about 3 hours from right now. The Utes Game Day pregame show today brought to you by Outlaw Distillery, our friends at Outlaw Distillery. True grain to glass, nitty-gritty distillery here in the state of Utah. They are a product forged in the history of the American West. You can try all of their products at local liquor stores, over at our ESPN 700 VIP tailgates, over at Big Willie's. Big thanks to our friends at Outlaw Distillery. In this segment, if you missed it earlier in the week, every week Kyle Whittingham joins the media to recap the week before and preview the game ahead. Here he is talking about UCLA, previewing Cal Poly, and more. Brought to you by Sound Warehouse, car stereo systems, navigation and integration, amplifiers, and more. All of your audio and visual solutions at Sound Warehouse. Stop by Sound Warehouse during the week, and you might just get some tickets to our VIP tailgate up on campus. It is Sound Warehouse, and this is Kyle Whittingham.
Needs to be, not as clean as it needs to be. Some special team errors, missed the first extra point, dropped a kickoff return and got pinned deep in our territory, mishit a few kickoffs. So there's things to work on there as well. So no shortage of things for us to address this week. But again, a good start to the season, and we just got to continue to work hard and focus from week to week, take them one at a time. So questions?
Justin. All right, this one's from Justin. After the best offensive performance in recent history, how are you going to improve tackling in the defensive secondary? What is the plan to improve?
Well, Coach Scally does a great job teaching it, first of all, him and Coach Shaw. They're the coaches back in the secondary. And I'm sure they'll have a plan this week to fortify that and get better at it. To be honest, we did not do a lot of tackling in fall camp by design. I wanted to keep everyone healthy, and so that has a little bit of something to do with it as well. But my guess is you'll see steady improvement in tackling as the season goes on. At least we hope so.
Coach Smith Snow and Lander Barton, their usage was interesting and surprising to see on Saturday night. Why
was it surprising? I told you guys it was coming.
You told us, but I guess.
Did you think I was lying?
The amount, I guess.
Well, Smith played 22 snaps of O. That's about what we had forecast. Lander about 10 snaps, and Benny maybe 5 to 7. So anyway, what's your point?
I was going to ask, is that something that will be determined week by week, matchup by matchup, their usage offensively and defensively?
Well, we plan on using them each and every week. How much is exactly as you mentioned. What the matchup was and what personnel groups they're in. Coach Beck typically goes into a game with 4, 5, or 6 personnel groups, and just depending on how much they're how many of those groups they're involved in. But I thought it was really good production from those guys. Smith, 5 catches for 50 or 60 yards, and some carries as well. Lander caught the touchdown pass and actually blocked really well too. Lander, I'm convinced, could be one of the best tight ends in the country if that was his full-time position. So he's a big plus. And then Benny did exactly what we hoped. He didn't have a lot of production on paper, but he did a great job of taking the top off the coverage and stretching the defense and opening some things up for other guys.
Kyle, walk me through just your thoughts on the wide receiver room right now, and how do you want to use, I guess, these next 2 games to establish a guy in that room at wide receiver 1 and maybe even wide receiver 2?
Well, I think we need to get Tobias a little more involved. He's a weapon for us, and you saw him catch a deep ball and then draw a PI on another deep ball, and that's really his thing. He seems to have a good knack for getting free up the field. He's also got a big catch radius, so we got to try to get him more involved. And otherwise, it's just you want more time, you want more production, play better in practice. That's how it is. I mean, you got to play your way into that. We're not just going to try to feature somebody if they haven't earned it. And not to say that they're not doing some good things in practice, but we feel like we've got the right guys on the field, and J.J. Buchanan is part receiver. He's kind of a hybrid, and then Smith Snowden's a receiver, and so I know he doesn't sit in that room full time, but moving forward, it would be nice to be able to have more production and emphasis placed on that. But again, it's got to be merited. You can't just hand out playing time and production. You got to earn it in practice.
Kyle, looking at the running back room, Parker and Rogers, we're pretty even in terms of their snaps on Saturday. How effective do you feel like they've been as a 1-2 punch in that opener, and do you kind of see that tandem approach going forward?
Well, first of all, I thought they both produced fairly well in the first game. We had, I think we were 5.3 a carry. We want to be over 5 yards a carry as a team. That's a standard that we've had for a long time. Right now, they're on equal footing. Both those guys are starters and are interchangeable, and so there really isn't one that's ahead of the other. In a game, or as the season plays out, if one gets the hot hand and becomes more productive, then we'll lean that way and give that guy more carries, more time. But as of this moment, they're again 1 and 1A, and so. They're both doing a good job. Both did a good job in the one game, and they blocked really well too. I don't know if you saw that the first play Smith had, Wayshawn really threw a nice block on the perimeter to free him up, and that's something the receivers I thought did good all game long, and particularly the tight ends as well. Is blocking, and everybody had the urgency to fit up on a block and wasn't just being a spectator. We had guys really actively blocking in the secondary and on the perimeter.
Good morning, Coach.
Hey, PK.
This Saturday, Coach McBride is going to go into the Ring of Honor. And I was wondering if you could speak to what Coach McBride has meant to the University of Utah football program, and then also what he's meant to you individually.
Coach Mack was responsible for the resurgence of Utah football. Did a phenomenal job recruiting. Got really good players into the program. Masterful recruiter. If you just say what is Coach Mack's strength, it was recruiting. And in college, that's the most important aspect of your job. So you can say he was the best at what was the most important. He had a great rapport with his players. Players loved him. Passionate coach. Loves the game. Still coaches to this day. I believe he's still working with kids in the community and helping out where he can. So he's continuing to be effective, but he really put Utah football back on the map, like I said. And for me personally, gave me my first opportunity in Division I football. I'm forever grateful for that. I got my start here at Utah. Came from right up the road at Idaho State, a 1AA program, and so he was instrumental in my path and coaching path, and very well deserved, obviously deserving of his Ring of Honor award that he's going to be, or induction that he's going to be getting this week, and he's meant so much to the community. Not just Utah football and the university, but so active in the community, and he's a guy that is constantly giving and has done that all his life, and And like I said, I'm eternally grateful for him and what he did for me. How's that? That good? Good bite? Okay. All right.
Back here, Kyle.
Hey.
You mentioned you thought Lander could be the best tight end in the country if he did that.
I didn't say the best tight end in the country. One of the best tight ends.
Okay, one of the best tight ends.
There's some really good tight ends out there. Yeah.
There are. And given how many good linebackers you have you thought of giving him a lot more snaps at tight end?
Well, it's still a work in progress. He's still a vital part of the defense. Yeah, we do have some depth at linebacker. There's no doubt, and that's a work in progress and conversation that we've had for the last several weeks. And the short answer is yes. We probably need to get involved a little bit more, get him involved a little bit more on the offense. Now, Dallin Bentley really played well. I don't know if you honed in on him specifically, but he blocked well, he caught the ball well, had a really nice game. And like I said, J.J. Buchanan did some good things for us as well. And Hunter Andrews is another guy that is getting playing time at that spot. So from week to week, as we already talked about, depending on the matchups, my guess is you will see his contribution on offense go up in the next ensuing weeks.
I'm curious to hear.
Did we not give out the free pizza? Because there's hardly anybody here today. They must all be in Provo. Okay.
I'm curious your thoughts on kind of the value of playing an FCS opponent. Is it kind of a chance to get a better look at some of these second and third stringers in a real game situation?
Well, first of all, I don't overlook anybody. I don't care what level they are or what their record is. As soon as you do that, you find yourself getting smacked in the face. And so we don't approach it any differently in our preparation, in our how we go about our business, and we expect our guys to work and focus just as if it was whoever we played. It doesn't matter. And so in that respect, the preparation remains the same. The process remains the same. But you hope if you get a chance to, especially early in the season, to get a look at some of the younger guys. You hope that happens, but that's getting ahead of things in our opinion. If we are able to take control of the game and get a lead, then it would be great to see some of these younger guys and see what they can do.
So heading into this last weekend, there was questions surrounding your outside corners, Scooby and Blake. How would you assess their performance at UCLA over the weekend?
Really good. I think they held up well. No balls over our head. We dodged a bullet or two. There were some guys open up the field that they missed the throw. But I thought for a first game, those guys did a nice job. Especially Blake Cotton. He's a good tackler, and he's not he doesn't turn things down. Sometimes you get DBs that are a little reluctant to go up and mix it up. But he demonstrated some physicality, did some good things in coverage. Of course, Smith Snowden's a premier cover guy, and Scooby played a lot of football for us last year, and so I thought those guys did a nice job. Jackson Benny did a really good job at the nickel. That's actually the toughest assignment, is the slot corner. He's got the most on his plate. He's also responsible for run game fits and blitzing off the edge on occasion. So I thought Jackson did a really nice job as well.
Kyle, you said after the game on Saturday that you had talked with members of Colorado staff just about Travis Hunter.
Didn't say I had. We had.
Oh, you guys had.
I didn't specifically.
What were those conversations like? Who were you guys?
I didn't have them. Our sports scientists and that collaborated and talked about. It was more from the science side rather than coaching side, but just how how you handle it, and particularly during the week. How to what kind of, I don't want to say concessions, but adjustments or modifications do you make for those players that are playing or projected to play. Like I said, Smith only played 47 total snaps, so that wasn't even really a typical week of just playing defense. That was a very low number. But and not just from Colorado, but we've called around other places as well, and again, just practice load, conditioning, weight room modifications, just the whole week, the whole work week, what we can do to make sure they're ready and don't get them, asking them to do things that they just physically can't do because they're worn out.
Coach, your defense had a 60% pressure rate on Nico Iamaleava, and a 60% pressure rate with just your base rush. When you're able to do that with just 4, get that sort of pressure, what does that do for your defense?
That's big for a defense coordinator to be able to generate a pass rush with just 4. It opens up all kinds of coverage combinations and coverage opportunities up the field, and you're not hanging yourself out and exposing yourself to big plays by bringing a bunch of pressure all the time. And so I think any DC in the country will tell you the same thing. If you can get good pressure with 4, then you've got something going there.
I'll always take pizza, Coach. But
let's go next week.
This is an easy one, but was there anything about your team that surprised you?
Surprised me. I'm going to say no. Way back, this team's work ethic and focus back in January and February in the off-season conditioning, and March and April with spring ball, June and July with summer conditioning, fall camp. These guys they get after it. They got great focus, great concentration. The work ethic is outstanding, and so no, I don't think there was any major surprises. No.
Merriweather was open deep a few times, and you mentioned caught one, and one was
PI.
Pass interference penalty. But it seemed like he had to wait on the ball. And I'm just wondering, is that a timing thing? Maybe thrown late, or is he that fast? Or?
Both. He's his big stride is he's going faster than he may look like he's going, and then Devin just underthrew him a couple times, and it's just a matter of continuing to get that chemistry. He wasn't with us in spring ball. Was he? I don't think he was. I think he just showed up. I can't remember. I'm getting old. But anyway, yeah, it's just a matter of timing that out better and getting the ball laid out there and for him to run underneath. That's it? All righty. Thanks, guys.
That was Kyle Whittingham, Utes head football coach, going into a matchup with Cal Poly tonight in Rice Eccles Stadium. Of course, the 4 p.m. kickoff. About a half hour from right now, we'll hand it over to Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, and Stevenson Sylvester for the call of the game. Sound from Kyle Whittingham each and every week, brought to you by Sound Warehouse. Car stereo systems, navigation and integration, amplifiers, and more. All of your audio and visual solutions at Sound Warehouse. And if you stop by Sound Warehouse during the week, you might get some tailgate passes to our VIP tailgate up at campus on the University of Utah. Back on the other side, the final 30 minutes of the Utes Game Day pregame show. We'll give you a college football scoreboard update. We'll give you some predictions for the show, or for the game as well. All that still to come on the Utes Game Day pregame show. I am Porter Larsen alongside Trevor Reilly, former Ute and NFL linebacker on Utah's #1 sports talk. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. There he is, head coach Kyle Whittingham. You can hear him each and every week, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Bill Riley and he sit down for the Kyle Whittingham Coaches Show, brought to you by Smith's every Tuesday at 6 on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Your home of the Utes for 70-plus years. We're live today at Beer Bar ahead of kickoff for Utah and Cal Poly here in Salt Lake City. It is the home opener in 2025. Utah, at least with fans in the field, in the stands, they've won their last 16 home openers, the COVID-excluded year, not counting in that regard. How about a little college football scoreboard update for you on this Utes game day? The college football scoreboard update brought to you by our friends at the Utah Toyota dealers. Visit toyota.com to build your car today and stop by one of many Utah Toyota dealers for the latest deals. Of course, Toyotathon coming up this holiday and football season. Big win for the Big 12 in Iowa. It's Iowa State, 16-13 over Iowa. Big 12, Big 10 matchup there, and the Cyclones come out on top after a field goal with final minute is the field goal that won it, and Iowa State gets out of there with a win. Texas, the number 7 team in the country, bouncing back this week after the opening week loss, 38-7 over San Jose State. Illinois, number 11 team in the country, they're up 38-19 over Duke. Southern Methodist, the 17th ranked Mustangs, are up 38-31 over Baylor. That one's a close one in the final minutes. And how about the Utah State Aggies? After a 1-0 start last week, they are down 37-17 against the 19th ranked Texas A&M. Number 4 Georgia and Austin PA up 14-3 rather. Georgia is, they are the number 4 team in college football. The ranked teams that have gone final so far, I mentioned Iowa over Iowa State, Iowa State over Iowa, 16-13. That one just went final. The number 23 Indiana Hoosiers win 56-9 over Kennesaw State. Texas Tech, a Big 12 foe, and a team that Utah will face momentarily this season, 62-14. They win over Kent State. We just watched Penn State win 34-0 over FIU and Florida State. The number 14 Seminoles, 77-3 over East Texas A&M. And then in the Big 12, I just mentioned Baylor and SMU locked in a tight one. Baylor just scored. It's 38-37 pending the extra point, and 34 seconds to go in the fourth quarter. We may see some overtime, some extra football in the Big 12 in that regard. Oregon and Oklahoma State. We've kind of infiltrated the Oregon watch party here at Beer Bar. They've got an alumni crew that they get here each and every week for the Oregon game. We'll be out of here before kickoff, so they'll be able to cheer for their Ducks. But they're going up against a Big 12 foe. Trevor, Oklahoma State and Oregon going to battle this week. That's I think a big game for the conference, but I think Oregon's going to handle them. It just doesn't seem like a great matchup.
I don't like ever saying Oregon's going to win. I think they're a bunch of cheaters in so many ways, man. But at the same time, you got to respect the hustle. Their offense is the best offense, yards and scoring since 2022. Okay, so give them credit where credit's due. They've recruited their butt off. They're spending the money.
They're doing it.
They should handle. They're the Yankees right now, at least west of the Mississippi. They're the Yankees and you Dodgers, whatever you want to say. So I'm looking. I'll see them probably in the playoff. I think we're going to play them in the playoff.
I think Oregon is that caliber of team. They're number 6 right now. They're 1-0. They've got Oklahoma State today. So an early test for the Big 10 Oregon Ducks against the Big 12 Oklahoma State Cowboys. Kansas and Missouri going to battle. Both of those teams kick off at 1:30. Colorado, the Buffaloes, they've got Delaware today. They should get their first win in the 2025 season. West Virginia faces off with Ohio at about 2 o'clock, and then Utah and Cal Poly, of course, at 4. Kansas State takes on Army today. Houston has Rice. UCF has North Carolina A&T. The 12th ranked and defending champion Sun Devils have Mississippi State. That's a big one there in Starkville. Arizona's number 12 team in the country. They're a 6.5-point favorite in Starkville, Mississippi. I mean, that's one that you don't usually or you wouldn't expect to see.
I told you before, who the heck wants to live down there? I used to live in Mississippi. I just moved from there, gosh dang it. Lived in Jackson, all right?
Do you think
you don't even fly into Jackson to get there? You got to fly into Memphis, all right? There ain't a hotel around there. And so ever since the money got even, right? You know, the South's always had bagmen, right? Let's not get that twisted. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Arizona
can't confirm.
Well, you can neither confirm or deny. I'm telling you, we're speculating here. It's what we do, right?
Right.
Arizona going in there as 6-point favorites. That's a Pac-10 school. I call them Pac-12 school. That's been a number of years since that's been a thing where we would go into the South and be that. So I'm looking forward for that team to do well down there. Actually, I think they're gonna win.
Weber State takes on Arizona, so there's a Big 12 Utah affiliated matchup there. The Weber State Wildcats 0-1, Arizona 1-0. BYU takes on Stanford, a BYU-Stanford game in which is a cross-conference ACC Big 12 matchup. Of course, that is a sign of the times here in 2025. Listen, BYU's 1-0. You didn't learn a lot in Week 1 against a Portland State team. It's one of the worst teams in the country, to be fair. 69-0 the final there. But BYU with a test this week against Stanford. Trevor, I know you're pretty biased when it comes to the team down south.
Yeah.
But give me an honest scout of the team that we'll face here later this year.
I actually want to address that. There's a number of Utah fans that they think I'm a Utah hater. Okay, I just don't lie. I'll tell the truth, gosh dang it. I don't like going to bed at night. If your bank account's negative, telling yourself it's positive. That's not how I roll.
Trevor tells it straight.
I try to, right? I don't want to be someone who can't have a respected opinion. Okay, so let's talk about BYU. BYU is coached by my former position coach.
Yep.
So I have a very good insight of what that's all about. My cousin was a quarterback there, Rhett Reilly, for a number of years. And I competed against him, never lost.
Your cousin Riley?
Rhett Reilly.
Riley?
No, his name's Rhett Reilly. Oh, my goodness. SMU's very have game-winning field goal here. Anyways, BYU, I'm just giving it for context. BYU, right, they got Gary Anderson advising them. Chad Kauhaha, former defensive lineman, and coach, he's on the defensive line with Sione Puha. Kalani's bringing in the tough guys to toughen up, right, and they start winning. So it's good for Utah when BYU's good. Who doesn't want to see undefeated Utah-BYU October 18th?
I hope that's
Come
the case.
on, man.
I
want
would
to see that.
love if that were the case. That'd be a fun matchup.
So, Ute Nation, don't be haters, right? We're not haters. We tell the truth. Gosh dang it. That's why we're awesome. So I think BYU's done a tremendous job. And again, to your point about Portland State, let's not get too tied up in anything. The Islanders, we want a piece of Portland State at the end of the season.
There you go.
I mean, not being a little facetious here, but they're really struggling getting talent there. Okay, it's a hard place to recruit, not a great recruiting base. I'm looking for BYU this year. Just a small thing about them. I want to see if they can be dominant on offense. Okay, question mark at quarterback. Huge question mark, right? They showed that they were on Saturday.
He looked good.
Stanford's terrible. They lost to Hawaii. Let's not get that twisted, right? Now that defense is a birth child of Jackson State and Rex Ryan and Buddy Ryan with Dennis Thurman running it. I had a part in that defense. And I got to tell you, they got their lunch handed to them, so they responded last week. I think they won last week.
Yep.
But I see BYU, Portland State and Stanford, they won 69-0. They should win by 30. I don't know what the spread is, but I bet you they win by 20 or 30 points.
Well, we'll see BYU and Stanford kicking off at 8:15. As Utah had the nightcapper last week, it's BYU with the late one this week. So we'll be able to probably wrap up our game here in Salt Lake, and you'll be able to scout the Cougars later on tonight. Cal Poly, Utah, kicking off at 4 p.m. Mountain Time. Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, Stevenson, Sylvester. They'll get you guys going about 20 minutes from right now. Until then, it is Trevor Reilly. It is myself. We are live at Beer Bar, downtown Salt Lake City,
and
161 East.
That cotton bottom burger, unbelievable, dude.
Trevor just had the cotton bottom burger, which, if you guys are familiar, the cotton bottom is a restaurant right at the mouth of Cottonwood Canyon, and it's phenomenal. It's really good. They've got this famous burger that they've been cooking the same way for like 30 plus years, and the ownership is now partnered with Beer Bar. Come to Beer Bar. They've got the same setup here, and they get you a cotton bottom burger here downtown Salt Lake City instead of at the mouth of the canyon. Hey, if you're down at the mouth of the canyon, stop at the original Cotton Bottom as well. Beer Bar, 161 South.
Guys, they have
Second
French
East.
bread. They got French bread instead of a bun, right?
Is that what you're
Garlic
stoked
patty.
about?
I mean, the onions are awesome. They're sauteed. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it is genuinely a really good burger, and they've got a bunch of other stuff here too as well. I'm trying the sweet potato tots. They are phenomenal, and 30-plus beers on tap. Bloody Mary's ready for brunch. Whatever you want here at Beer Bar. Watch some football, talk some sports, and stop by and say hello. 2 tickets to the game if you don't have any, and you want to get to Utah Cal Poly. Come by, say hello, and maybe get a chance to win 2 tickets to said football game. On the other side, Trevor Reilly and I will make our predictions, as will James Peterson back in the studio. We'll give you guys a final update on some games across the country and set the scene for the show. Maybe a little weather update for you as well. It might get a little wet tonight in Salt Lake. We'll give you the latest on that and go from there. It is the Utes Game Day pregame show. I am Porter Larsen. Trevor Reilly sitting beside me live at Beer Bar, and brought to you today by Outlaw Distillery on Utah's #1 sports talk. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. That was Utah quarterback Devin Dampier, QB1, bringing us back in on the Utes Game Day pregame show. You can listen to Edition with Devin each and every week, noon on Thursdays, live on ESPN 700, or later on YouTube and, of course, the website, ESPN700sports.com. We are back on the other side with Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, and Stevenson Sylvester for the call of the game. And it is Utah and Cal Poly, of course, the home opener for the Utes coming up in a little over 2 hours. Trevor Reilly, Porter Larsen taking you through it in the Utes Game Day pregame show. We are live from Beer Bar, 161 East, 2nd South in downtown Salt Lake City. A really cool place to watch the game, Trev. Bunch of big screens. As you guys are hearing right now, we have the Oregon watch party, and Oregon just scored a long opening touchdown. Noah Whittington with the touchdown on, is that the opening play?
I think it was like the second down.
Second down. Oregon gets the 60-plus yarder. And 6-0 for the Ducks early on in the Big Ten.
They ran counter.
Big 12 matchup between Oregon and Oklahoma State. And SMU missed their kick. So we got Baylor and SMU going into overtime. A little scoreboard update for you as we head into the final segment here. All right, Trevor. Last week we saw Utah, obviously a dominant win, 43-10 over UCLA. Going into the game, we had question marks about not really the personnel for Utah, but what it looked like as a unit, right? And a lot of questions answered with Devin Dampier. But I want to zero in on Jason Beck. Now, a lot of the early play calling, especially early game, early season, can sometimes be scripted, right? You want to script maybe your first 7 to 10 plays, see how they play out. What did it look like to you the first series or two of Jason Beck's Utah career? Because it just looked like play calling mastery, and I know that a lot of people are going to get too excited too early about an offensive coordinator, and when things go bad, Trevor, they get really frustrated way too early with the offensive coordinator. It looked really good, though, in the start, and in the first couple series, it just seemed like he was in a groove.
That offense is supposed to be run that way, right? And when you see that, it's, they say poetry in motion. That's art to me, right? For Jason Beck, when he leaves this earth, right, this is going to be one of the things that people remember him by, right? His legacy, not the game, I'm saying the way that offense is run, right? When everything clicks, all pistons are firing, or cylinders fire, everything's working as it's supposed to. It looks beautiful. Right. It looks like it's supposed to, right? Sometimes you score and it's like, oh, that was weird, something weird happens, or there's an interception and a fumble. That was how it's supposed to look. We drove the ball down, took care of business, and the game was over in the first quarter. I mean, if you're down 3 scores, it's really, what are the odds of coming down? 8 or 9 out of 10 times you're going to lose.
Well, in the way that you score early in games can sometimes set a tone. It takes me back to the Sugar Bowl, where it wasn't just that Brian Johnson and Andy Ludwig were clearly on the same page and clicking. It was that you could tell that Utah went into that game with a game plan that was a lot better than Alabama's, and they were executing it a lot better than Alabama's, and it set the tone for the game, right?
Dude, Andy Ludwig, man.
Even though it's 7 points, and that's just one drive, it felt a little bit more meaningful than just one touchdown because of the way that they, of course, the way that they looked in Series 1, but Series 2 as well. Really, the whole first half, Utah was dialed in.
Well, you talked about Andy. I had the pleasure of working for Andy Ludwig, and I'm about ready to move across the street from him in Poway.
There we go.
In October, my uncle lives down there. The guy was a master of preparation, right? You ask around the league, college league I'm talking about, you ask around anyone who's worked in the Western United States, nobody works harder or longer than Andy Ludwig. And Jason Beck, he's found a way to prepare his staff in the first year where it looks like they've been together now for 3 or 4 seasons, right? And now we're speaking about the first game, right? We'll see how it goes in the next 3 or 4 weeks. But I give him credit and his staff credit, bringing a new staff together. I think he only hired one guy.
Yeah.
So that's a big-time thing for me. Andy kind of had the same thing. Andy doesn't get enough credit. Andy was a part of the Sugar Bowl and 2 Rose Bowls, right? I know he kind of went on bad terms, right? But at the end of the day, Ute Nation, we need to remember our man Andy Ludwig, a legend on we talk about Ron McBride. Well, if you talk about all-time assistant coaches,
he's up there.
How is he not number 1?
Right.
So that's what we're talking about is preparation. Like Jason Beck, from what I hear and what I see, doing similar things on the preparation side.
What I really liked about what I saw last week, obviously Jason has a pretty strict spread offense, right? You don't see a lot of the pro style under center stuff that you saw with Andy Ludwig. It's very different looking, but you also saw a jumbo package. You saw a 5-man out wide set. You saw a pro style I formation last week against UCLA. You saw all of that while also seeing the offense really, really clicking in that spread style. The variety and the versatility is something that maybe was my favorite part about how that play calling was.
Well, we just watched Oregon run that counter, right? They ran it out of pistol, right?
Yep.
Pistol's a weird-looking offense. Shotgun, the running back behind him. But the play before, they're under center running a bootleg. So imagine you're a defense and you're thinking, Mike Leach, that was one trick pony in a way, right? Okay, we know what we got to deal with. Michigan, when they won the Natty a couple years ago, they're going to run the ball, get under center. But when you have to face an offense that, we're under center, we're in I formation, we're in jumbo, we're in spread, we're in 10 personnel. We've motioned everybody out to empty. Shoot, we're running speed sweep with the receiver. You don't have enough hours, right, to go through that many plays, dude.
Right.
You're preparing for a game, and you want to get 3 or 4 times at each play. You can't do that with all those formations.
I want to expand on this because part of the reason Andy's offense became an issue, I think, was because the turnover in college football is so much right now that's an offense that has so many intricacies. It's, as we talked about, a pro style. You got to learn that thing. You got to learn that thing for a year or two. You got to learn the pre-snap stuff, especially as a quarterback. That can be a really difficult offense to dial in because there are so many moving parts and so many different formations. How does Jason Beck's offense parallel that, and how does it differ? Because it seems a little bit more plug and play while also still having all that versatility.
I think Jason's a little more backyard boogie. Right? I told you before, the Houdini aspect of our quarterback, that's part of the offense.
Okay.
And when I was at Colorado, we had a guy who was a little bit Houdini-ish, right, Shador, and it became part of the offense. It didn't start out as a part of the offense, but it became a part of the offense. If you go back, I always reference the tape from last year. They were covered, and they're still beating us, right? That's Houdini stuff. And our guy, Dampier, he's got the ability to make it happen when it's not there. I talked about that running back, number one, always being able to beat that first guy, or Zach Moss. Those are the guys that win you football games, right? When they know that you're going to run this play and you get it off anyway. That's what I like about Beck, is that he doesn't get too far into the weeds with restricting that, right? They're still running a very organized, very, very efficient offense, but at the end of the day, he knows that his guy, and they're paying him big money, right? And they brought him in, they brought him together. He knows that his guy is going to get it done.
Right. Is there something to that, which last season we saw maybe an Isaac Wilson come in and struggle with an offense that has so much pre-snap, so much stuff that you have to kind of figure out? It seemed like he was maybe thinking too much during the course of a play because of an offense that maybe was more built for a guy who's been playing football for 10 years, right?
Well, and I want to say one thing about Isaac. If I'm not mistaken, Isaac had a knee injury last year.
Yeah, he played through injury.
Chips in his bones or something in his knee, and freshman. And yes, to your point, I never learned the receiver splits. I was coaching tight ends. I was focused on blocking and formations, but there's so many intricacies because it's more of a pro-style offense, meaning, the width of your split and where everything goes and how deliberate you get up and the shifts and motions. It's a lot to ingest for a 20-hour work week. Mm-hmm. And I say that in all due respect to college football, but guys, it's 20 hours, right? On paper, it's 20 hours. And in film room, you might get, 8 to 9 hours a week with the coach. That's not, you get double that in the NFL, maybe triple it sometimes. And so when you're trying to do that with these young guys, everyone's learned off of TikTok and 6 seconds of attention, right? Is that what they're saying now? You got 6 seconds before you lose your attention. You have to, they always.
I might have 5.
Yeah, well, there you go. See, I'm not on the internet, okay? So I still read at night, trying to keep it that way. But you get what I'm saying, right? And so I don't know too much about Isaac. I just know hard offense. Okay, Tyler Huntley's first year. I always tell the story. We watched the tape, and Andy says, well, guys, I'm on the staff. Good thing we had Zach and Tyler. Because they made it else. Well, right. The plays would break down, they'd make it happen. And so we got better the next year, and that's when Tyler, Right. Anyway, so I'm really excited about Beck. I think the quarterback and him have such a great relationship. It's like Beck is in his head. It's like once he calls the play, he does what Beck wants him to do.
How do you feel about, historically, there's a discussion around Kyle and his ability to let an offensive staff go do their thing, right? Because, listen, there's a way that he likes to play football and control time of possession. We saw that last week. The 9-minute 44-second drive, the longest by time in college football so far this season. Kyle Whittingham loves that.
Oh, yeah.
He loves that. From an offensive staff, it seemed that Jason Beck was perfectly fine doing that, but you also understand this is an offense that likes to sometimes go no huddle, likes to go 12 seconds or less, right? How does that dichotomy work between a coach who historically likes to slow things down, likes to sometimes muddy things up, and an offense that we really want to see get out and run?
Well, if you watch some of these chess movies, right, they talk about some of these players that just come out and they do erratic things and then they win. Mm-hmm. And they say that is a strategy in itself. And when you're so multiple, right, we got a pick here. The game's over already in Eugene, 14-0, a minute into the game. Oh, my goodness. Anyways.
You said they were going to blow them out.
Oklahoma State, they can't get talent, dude. T. Boone Pickens died. Going back to what I was saying, though, this guy's multiple, right? He studies his opponent, and because the offense, right, it's not as complex. And if you do up-tempo, you get more plays in, right? And you get more plays, and you get, in theory, you get more reps. In theory, if you get more reps, you should be better prepared to execute. So there's a whole lot of that stuff to digest, but I just know this. The quarterback looks like it's what the head coach would do on almost every single play, and that's always a good feeling.
And when you can see that cohesion, it just seems like it helps the rest of the team too, right? The offensive line, everyone seemed so in sync last week that it was just really pretty to watch. And now it's not going to be like that every week. There's going to be times where the offense looks a little misconstrued. There's going to be times when the offense needs to hurry it up because they don't have the comfortability they had last week, or they're down by 7 points. That's something we're going to see, and when we do, really interested to see how Jason Beck reacts. All right, Trevor. We got an over-under at about 52.5, and the Utes have 41.5 points on the spread. Listen, this is a game where I said it earlier. I don't care if it's 37-0 or 70-10. Just play clean, execute, get out of here healthy. That being said, if you were to give a prediction, do you think the Utes are going to cover somewhere around that 50-plus points? You think they get a 50 burger?
I think that I take the over. My only concern is that if we play man defense, they got a quarterback and a receiver who can get after it.
Yeah.
And you talk about one-on-one matchups, right? I'm sure they'll have an answer for 10. But that's always a concern against these teams that aren't as talented across the board. If they got 2 or 3 guys, right, and it turns into a one-on-one game, they can get, those are deadly. And not deadly, but those are dangerous. It's a dangerous thing. So what's the over at again?
52.5.
I'm going to take that. If I was gambling, I quit gambling. I'm banned from Wendover. I can't go there anymore.
Me too.
Over 52.5. Right, take that one.
Yeah, me and Trevor are not allowed in Wendover, but we'll hang out at Beer Bar during a pregame show.
Drinking water.
You mentioned it's Ty Diefenbach, it's Michael Briscoe. Those are the 2 guys that you really look out for Cal Poly. And similar to last week, man, like Nico, the same story. If he got out there, really can do some damage. Utah didn't allow that to happen. They got out of there with a 43-10 win. It was really, really clean, really impressive, and that's what they look to do today. The Utes Game Day pregame show on this Saturday afternoon, brought to you by our friends at Outlaw Distillery, at R&R Barbecue, at Mo Betta's, of course, at Beer Bar, and our friends at Sound Warehouse. Car stereo systems, navigation and integration, amplifiers, and more. Sound Warehouse is also going to be rocking the VIP tailgate up at ESPN 700, so stop by and say hello to them. I'm with Trevor. I think Utah wins. I think they cover. I think they hit the over. I think they might get to 50 on their own here today against the Cal Poly Mustangs, and I think Utah gets to 2-0. And we'll get one step closer to Big 12 play. Trev, thanks for joining me today, man.
It's been a pleasure, man. And I'm going to say, come by and check this place out. The food alone is fantastic. Yeah, stop by Beer Bar. If you don't have a place to watch the game, come by, and they got the big screens going up. You're going to have to be patient because the Oregon fans have kind of taken over, and they got a watch party here. But that game will be wrapping up. In fact, it's looking pretty over already. Oregon up 13-0. Early on Oklahoma State. This has been the Utes Game Day pregame show. I am Porter Larsen. That is Trevor Reilly, the former Ute and NFL linebacker. On the other side, well, Bill Riley and a bunch of other former Utes and NFL players. It's Scott Mitchell, it's Stevenson Sylvester. They have the call of the game from Rice Eccles Stadium. It is the home opener, number 25 Utah against the Cal Poly Mustangs, and it comes your way next right here on Utah's #1 sports talk and your home of the Utes. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.